Veiled Vices, True Crime and Mystery. It was a warm spring evening in West Memphis, Arkansas, when three 8-year-old boys went out to play and never came back. The shocking discovery of their lifeless bodies in a wooded area known as Robin Hood Hills would ignite a storm of controversy, accusations, and a quest for justice that lasted decades. What really happened to Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers? And who were the West Memphis Three? Welcome to Veiled Vices, where we unravel the darkest mysteries and most chilling crimes. I'm your host, Ava, and today, we delve into a case that has baffled investigators and haunted a community for over 20 years. Let's explore the controversial case of the West Memphis Three. Our story begins on May 5, 1993, in West Memphis, Arkansas, a small town where everyone knew each other's names. That afternoon, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, all second graders at Weaver Elementary School, went out to ride their bikes. As the sun set and the boys failed to return home, panic set in. Families and friends launched a frantic search, scouring the neighborhood and nearby woods. The next day, a gruesome discovery was made in Robin Hood Hills, a wooded area near their homes. The boys' bodies were found in a drainage ditch, naked and hogtied with their own shoelaces. They had been brutally beaten, and Christopher Byers had been mutilated. The peaceful community of West Memphis was shattered, and fear gripped the town as the search for the killer began. The discovery of the boys' bodies sent shockwaves through the community. The police quickly came under immense pressure to solve the case. Rumors and fear spread like wildfire, with whispers of satanic rituals and cult activities. The investigation focused on three local teenagers, Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly Jr., who were soon arrested and charged with the murders. Damian, the perceived ringleader, was a troubled youth with an interest in the occult, which made him an easy target for suspicion. Jason was his best friend, and Jesse, who had a low IQ and was easily influenced, found himself caught in the middle of a storm he barely understood. The police were under intense pressure to solve the case quickly. With little physical evidence, they turned to Jesse Miskelly Jr., who had a reputation as an easily influenced teenager. After a long and controversial interrogation that lasted over 12 hours, Jesse, who had an IQ of 72, gave a detailed but often inconsistent confession. Jesse's confession was full of contradictions. He initially said the murders happened in the morning, then changed his story to say it was in the evening. His account of how the boys were tied up also changed several times. Despite these inconsistencies, his confession was used as the cornerstone of the case against the three teenagers. There was little physical evidence linking Damian, Jason, and Jesse to the crime scene. The prosecution presented fibers found at the crime scene that were similar to items from the suspects' homes, but this evidence was far from conclusive. Additionally, there was testimony from dubious witnesses, including a jailhouse informant who claimed Damian had confessed to him. Despite the weak evidence, the community's fear and the media's portrayal of the teenagers as satanic killers fueled the prosecution's case. During the investigation, several pieces of evidence were either mishandled or ignored. A knife found in a lake behind Jason Baldwin's home was suggested to be the murder weapon, but forensic tests were inconclusive. Moreover, witnesses who claimed to have seen the boys after the time the prosecution stated they were murdered were dismissed or discredited. To understand why Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly were targeted, we need to delve into their backgrounds. Damian Eccles, born Michael Wayne Hutchison, was a troubled teenager. He was known for his interest in the occult, his unconventional clothing, and his fascination with heavy metal music. In a conservative town like West Memphis, Damian stood out. He had a difficult childhood, marked by poverty and instability, which only added to his outsider status. Jason Baldwin was Damien's best friend. Unlike Damien, Jason was quiet and reserved, known for his talent in drawing and his love for his family. Despite his low profile, his association with Damien made him a target for suspicion. Jesse Miskelly Jr., the third suspect, was a friend of both Damien and Jason. Jesse had an IQ of 72, classifying him as borderline intellectually disabled. He was known to be easily influenced and eager to please, which made him vulnerable during the police interrogation. The early 1990s were a time of heightened fear of satanic cults in the United States, often referred to as the satanic panic. This moral panic was fueled by sensationalist media reports and a general fear of the unknown. In a small, religious community like West Memphis, these fears were particularly pronounced. The murders of 3 young boys provided the perfect backdrop for these fears to explode. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception of the case. News outlets quickly latched onto the idea that the murders were part of a satanic ritual. Damien's interest in the occult and his unconventional appearance made him the perfect villain for this narrative. The media's portrayal of Damien, Jason, and Jesse as devil-worshipping killers created a climate of fear and hysteria, putting immense pressure on the police to solve the case quickly. The trials of the West Memphis Three were highly publicized and controversial. Damien and Jason were tried together, while Jesse was tried separately due to his confession. The prosecution painted a picture of Damien as the leader of a satanic cult, using his interest in heavy metal music and the occult to portray him as a dangerous individual. The defense argued that there was no physical evidence linking the boys to the crime and that Jesse's confession was coerced. They pointed out numerous inconsistencies in his statements and the lack of any DNA evidence tying them to the crime scene. Despite these arguments, Damien was sentenced to death, Jason to life without parole, and Jesse to life plus 40 years. The trials were marked by emotional testimonies and a community desperate for justice. The parents of the victims were vocal about their belief in the guilt of Damien, Jason, and Jesse, influenced by the media's portrayal of the case. The defense's efforts to introduce alternative suspects and evidence of the boys' innocence were met with resistance from both the prosecution and the judge. In the years following the convictions, the trials themselves became a focal point for criticism. Legal experts and advocates pointed out the lack of concrete evidence, the questionable tactics used by the prosecution, and the influence of the satanic panic that gripped the community at the time. Over the years, the case of the West Memphis Three gained national attention. Documentaries such as Paradise Lost, The Child Murders at Robin Hood Hills brought new scrutiny to the case and highlighted the numerous flaws in the investigation and prosecution. The documentaries also sparked the involvement of celebrities such as Eddie Vedder, Johnny Depp, and Peter Jackson, who used their platforms to advocate for the release of Damien, Jason, and Jesse. Their support brought additional attention and resources to the case, helping to fund legal appeals and investigative efforts. Legal experts and public advocacy groups joined forces to fight for the release of Damien, Jason, and Jesse. In 2007, new forensic evidence suggested that DNA found at the scene did not match any of the 3 convicted boys. Instead, the DNA pointed to Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch. Hobbs had a history of violent behavior and a shaky alibi for the night of the murders. Despite this, the authorities did not pursue charges against him. Further investigations revealed that there were bite marks on the victims' bodies that did not match any of the West Memphis Three, raising additional questions about their involvement. The defense team also uncovered evidence of potential jury misconduct, with some jurors allegedly discussing the case outside of deliberations and being influenced by media coverage. In 2011, after 18 years of legal battles and growing evidence of their innocence, Damien, Jason, and Jesse were released from prison through an Alford plea. This plea allowed them to assert their innocence while acknowledging that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict them. The case remains officially unsolved, and no one else has been charged with the murders of Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers. Over the years, numerous theories and potential suspects have been proposed, but no definitive answers have emerged. One of the most discussed alternative suspects is Terry Hobbs, the stepfather of Stevie Branch. DNA evidence found on the crime scene included a hair that was a match to Hobbs. His history of violence and inconsistencies in his statements have raised suspicion. However, Hobbs has consistently denied any involvement in the murders. Another suspect that has come under scrutiny is John Mark Byers, the stepfather of Christopher Byers. Byers had a troubled past and exhibited strange behavior during the investigation and trials. He later became an outspoken advocate for the innocence of the West Memphis Three, claiming that the real killer was still out there. Despite the suspicions, no concrete evidence has linked Byers to the crime. Additionally, some have suggested that the murders were committed by someone passing through the area, potentially a truck driver or a transient. The location of the bodies near a major highway supports this theory. However, without more evidence, this remains speculative. The families of the victims have been profoundly affected by the murders and the subsequent legal battles. Pam Hicks, Stevie Branch's mother, and Dana Moore, Michael Moore's mother, have expressed their belief in the innocence of the West Memphis Three and their desire for the real killer to be found. The case has also had a lasting impact on the community of West Memphis. The fear and suspicion that gripped the town during the investigation have left deep scars. Many residents still struggle with the trauma of the murders and the realization that the real killer may still be out there. The mystery of the West Memphis Three remains one of the most haunting, unresolved cases in American history. What do you think happened that fateful evening in Robin Hood Hills? Could there be a clue everyone missed? Share your theories in the comments below, and let's unravel this mystery together. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more chilling tales from Veiled Vices. Stay safe, and until next time, keep your eyes open for the secrets lurking in the shadows.